When this stadium erupts, we all feel it. But the colour, the passion and the displays that bring Wearside to life, they're built by just a handful of fans working with the love and passion for Sunderland. Welcome to what happens behind the Tifo.
I've been volunteering with This Is Wearside, and I wanted to see what actually goes into behind the scenes of making a tifo or a fan display. Things I wanted to know was actually what work goes into it. Also, I wanted to find out what would be the relationship with the club and the fans themselves, and also to get a little sneak peek into what they've got planned for the future. The call went out on social media a few weeks ago, and I decided to go there to see. Basically, it was open day at the Founders Bar at the Stadium of Light, where you could go in there and you could see what kind of work goes into it. And I jumped at the opportunity, and my expectations were that there was going to be a huge crew of about 40 to 50 volunteers working tirelessly, like keeping flags and whatnot up to date. But what I found was a little bit more surprising. I've went to the opening day and this is based at the Founders Bar, and I've went in there, and my first surprise was I was the only one who actually turned up, which was quite surprising, given that these kind of displays take a lot of teamwork, and I would have expected interest to be a little bit more higher than it was. Even just for an opening day, just to be a nosy Parker, go in there, see what they do. And it was surprising that I was the only one who turned up. And with me being the only one to turn up, I managed to get in there, and this gave me a unique point of view, because when I initially went in there, what I was going to do is I was just going to do like a little behind the scenes video for YouTube, do this video. But that evolved into something a lot more complex than what I'd first originally wanted. See, this was originally going to be just a video with me going behind the scenes at this opening day, and that's it. Just see what they do. However, when I got speaking to Chris, who's one of the organisers there, and when I get speaking to the rest of the team, things kind of moved a lot faster, and I ended up being a little bit more than just a general volunteer for a day. One of the first surprising things I actually discovered was that This Is Wearside is like a 2-year-old company that is taken over from the Spirit of 37. Not only that, when I was expecting like a team of about 50 volunteers, it turns out that there's only a solid team of around about 8 to 10 people that actually run it. So at this opening day, I got to see behind the scenes. The main task that was going on at the time was cleaning the plastics, which are the little sheets of plastic which are held up during a display. They were getting ready for the remembrance display against Arsenal. And on top of that, they were also maintaining the flags, which includes sanding down the flagpoles, so like there's no splinters or anything, stapling and securing flags to the flagpoles, making sure that the flags were clean. And it was a really interesting insight, because it was kind of like really relaxed vibe going on in there, but you knew that they were working hard. And they had just had the Founders Bar, as the club had just allowed them to lend it for a bit, and this is something that's kind of new for them. They usually do it at one of their own houses. I believe Sunderland did a documentary on behind the scenes of where they had it in just somebody's back garden, one of the team's back garden, cleaning and doing all of that. But now they're actually based at the stadium, and they could work from the stadium grounds. Getting a feel at the opening day was kind of an eye-opener for me personally, because as a fan with these displays, I just walk into the stadium and they're there. And magic, you know, and we don't really get to see the work that goes behind. Like things like doing sanding a flagpole, you wouldn't really expect. Cleaning a sheet of plastic so it's disinfected so people can hold it. And so the next thing for This Is Wearside would be to hold a display, and what we were going to do was hold the opening across the Kale Crossing, which is the new bridge in Sunderland, for the Wolves game. And we were going to be tasked with having the big flags, leading a huge procession with thousands and thousands of fans behind us. And we'd be joined on the bridge with dignitaries, like councillors, ex-footballers. And this was an interesting thing for me, because I was kind of like, yeah, let's do it. Like, this is history. I absolutely love it. This is what this channel's about, like living history and documenting it. So I figured, you know what, I'll put myself forward for the Kale Square crossing. And I left that opening day, and I'd taken in a lot of information on just what goes on behind the scenes, especially in relation to what This Is Wearside does and what they have to do just to get one of these displays approved. Seeing it from a fan's point of view, We go there, we sit down, we enjoy the display, that's pretty much it. But behind the scenes, there's logistics, there's a huge back and forth with not just the club, but you've also got to get things approved by the league. Even the referee has to approve certain things when it comes to displays. And I didn't know this, so this was a great learning experience for me, and I'd learn a lot more. To Sunderland versus Wolves, we're doing really good in the table. Wolves is a very achievable result that we can get, and we know it. And I go over to Keele Square, and there's this big grand opening for the bridge. Now, the bridge has already been open for the Women's World Cup, and to be honest, I thought this would have been open at least by the Villa match, but for whatever reasons, it had to have been like the Wolves game. And we get to it, and I go over from Keele Square, and I say hi and that, and once again, I'm just there to film and kind of document a little bit behind the scenes of what they do. And I get called over and invited over to like past the enclosure, and I get to actually hold one of the flags, and I get to hold the yellow and green Sunderland flag, and then it kind of like hits me, like, you know, I'm going to be one of like the first people leading this procession of all these fans like behind us, and it makes for one of those moments in life where you kind of like the gravity of a situation hits you during it, and it makes you think like these images, these pictures of this first flag procession going over the bridge for this match, and if we win the match, it's going to be memorable for an eternity. And we're all walking over with these flags, and I managed to catch some footage on my glasses here, and it's historic. There's nothing. It's being a part and being there, witnessing and being a part of history for the first time, and it is very exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. But we're all standing there, we get into formation, we start marching over. They've got their marching band going on, they go over. Kieran Louis Dreyfus is there, Kevin Ball's there, Kevin Phillips is there, all the Kevins, and we've got George, our oldest fan, who's leading the way across the bridge. Like, there's nothing more symbolic than the old leading the new into the future. It's fantastic bit of symbolism there. And we get to walk over, and part of the way through, just as we walk, I get to turn right, and I've never been on the bridge yet. I wasn't there for the Women's Rugby World Cup opening, and I look right, and you see the old bridge, and it hits you like things have changed now, because this new bridge, this is what everyone's going to be walking over. All the future good times, all the future bad times, this bridge is going to be synonymous with the Stadium of Light and connecting the city to the stadium. It's why it's there. It's why it's on the strip. It's why they've made such a big deal of it. And this was a fantastic experience to have, and it also gave me a lot more insight into what This Is Wearside do. Because even though it was part of like a flag procession, you think, oh, you just get a flag, walk across a bridge, job's done. No, not that simple, not that easy. We had all of the local media there that was filming us. Like this was going to go down in history. Like, you can go and see them pictures, and I'm not that clear on the pictures, to be honest. I'm just like this little yellow like dot to the side, but I'm there. I'm on that. Like, for people to look back in 50, 60, 70 years time, they're going to look back. There's me, right in the corner there with the little yellow flag. But for the procession for This Is Wearside, walk across the bridge, we get to the end, and then there's the task of collecting the flags. And this was another thing that I found out, that over the years of all the displays that we've had, the level of flags, the level of stock that they have for the flags has depleted immensely. Last season alone, they had about 1,000 flags in their stock, and because of damage, because people just literally walk away with them, they've went from 1,000 flags to around about 400 at the last count. Now, one of the issues with this was that when we got to the end of the bridge, we stood there, and Chris had this huge flag, and it's like the main prominent, like the old ship badge, and it was this huge flag. And we ended up standing there, and we had to send people back into the crowds, back into the hustle and bustle, and this was thousands of people, just to try and get the flags back so we can use them for future displays. And as Chris was standing there, we also discovered that people would come over, see the huge flag and want a picture in front of the huge flag. So it kind of morphed from this, from just like collecting all the flags in, to becoming a photo op. And this was something that was funny to me, because we got there at the end and people start coming over, and I'm standing at the holding one of the bottom corners of the flags, because obviously the flag's like huge, it's waving in the wind, and you want people to have like a full-on picture with like the badge in the background. So I'm pulling on the corner to try and make sure like the flag's like fully unfurled for the people's pictures. And it starts with like a couple of kids wanting it, then a couple of adults, and then a huge mix of people just getting in there, getting a photo op. Obviously, why not? And like Chris doesn't ask for any donations or anything. He doesn't charge people anything. This is just done out of the goodness of his heart. And it comes to the part where around about 15 minutes before kickoff, he's still standing there taking photo opportunities. So it's 15 minutes before kickoff, and I've personally, like, I need to get to my seat. I'm up in the north stand. Little did I know that Chris also has to be in the north stand by kickoff. So I've got in my seat, and I usually get there like about half an hour early in that, but leaving it to like 10 minutes before kickoff was kind of like a panic on for me. And I get there and I notice Chris running around the edge of the pitch with the huge flag in tow. And he's only got to like wave it right at my end, right in front of my seat, which was funny. And it goes to show that like, this is Wearside. It's not just like the fan displays, it's the fan experience that they add to for the match. And Chris standing there just taking photographs and getting people to take pictures. And there's some of the viewers out there, some of you will have had your picture taken in front of the flag, and by all means share them, like give us your experience and whatnot. And I think this is something that's really cool about this is Wearside, that they are just fans for fans. And doing that, they didn't have to do that. He jeopardised not being in the match on time, but he did it for the fans, and that to me is absolutely amazing. Being part of history, being one of the first to cross the Keele Square, I'm in them pictures. I've been bit by this bug. Honestly, it is one of the most intoxicating things to give up your time to be just a tiny part of history. And I can see why they do it. I can see why they go through so much stress and so much struggle just for that like one instant. One of the few things that Sunderland's famous for is our remembrance parades, and I believe ours is like the second largest outside of the Cenotaph in London itself. So we kind of have this duty, and it's one of those things that translates through the club. And we did it last year. We had the huge display that was like the full bottom bowl, and this year's plans were even grander, where we're going to go for a full stadium display, including the away end, and the Arsenal supporters were kind enough to agree to it. And at the opening day, I managed to see like kind of some of the behind the scenes of it and see the designs, which I believe I'm now allowed to share now, as obviously the display's been gone. So one of the things you'll find here is that the full design of the display it's kind of blocky, and this is because it's done on an Excel sheet. Now let me put this into perspective. You can get lots of art programs, you can get lots of like kind of pixel art programs that you could use to do displays. However, all of these displays were done on Excel, where Chris himself has painstakingly went through about 48,500 boxes, like adjusted them just to the size of a seat, and he has individually coloured each and every single seat as he's went along to a remembrance design. And this one was all four corners were going to be done with the 3 different bands of colours to reflect different branches of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. There was going to be poppies. There was going to be 2 main big poppies in the north and south stand, and there was going to be other little poppies dotted about, both red and purple, for service animals. And this is what it was supposed to look like. Obviously, there was going to be a lot of changes like on the fly. However, the thing that got me most here was that last year's display took 8 of them around about 9 days to complete, and they had like a long run up there. Unfortunately for us, this time around, the Everton game was moved to a Monday night, which then meant that their run-up time, their lead-up time for this was now 4 days. And they basically had the same amount of people, like about 10 to 15 people max, depending on how many people were available during the week. And I felt, personally, I was up to that challenge to put in some hard graft because, like I say, the bridge had kind of infused me into this because this was going to be part of history, and I wanted to know what it feels like to look around a stadium that with a full display and, you know, point out and go, that I put them there, I helped with that, I did that. You know, kind of a little bit big-headed and selfish, but you've got to be sometimes. I've done a lot of graft and I've done a lot of hard physical labour, and this was right up there with some of the worst of it, to be honest. When you're surrounded by people who are as passionate as you about your club, and you've always got something to talk about, and going in there, you realise that it's a huge task. 48,500 different seats, all of them needing a piece of plastic in them. All of them have to be choreographed with the right kind of colour, in the right place, in the right block. The plastics had to be put in a certain way so they didn't blow off onto the pitch or get picked up. And it was very windy at the time, so there was kind of that nightmare there. And once again, such a small team. And if there's anything to take away from this, it's that this is Wearside need more people who are willing to put in hours, who are willing to give a little bit of their time and put the graft in for these displays. And I hope that a few of you actually feel compelled to at least go along or contact them and say, you know, I'd love to be a part of it, because once again, personally, from my point of view, it's immense. It's one of those, like, you really feel good about yourself at the end of it, and you do get the kind of bug for it. Seeing the design process and how they do these was one of the more surprising things. It's not all everything done on Excel. That's just because with the plastics display, you've got to individually pick out where each plastic needs to be for a design. And one of the other kind of behind the scenes sneak peeks I got to see was with the big Tifos. First up was the effort that goes into making a Tifo once it's printed, and I got to see behind the scenes pictures of the team when they had to individually cable tie the giant, like, panther, the till the end black cat Tifo to the net. That was an interesting insight to see. I've got pictures here of them, and from what I understand is for every 3 blocks on the net they had to put a single cable tie on to make sure that the whole Tifo stayed in place and stayed still and obviously didn't fall down or catch fire or anything like that. And that was a huge success against Coventry. Another one of the stories from behind the scenes I saw was the Wembley display. Now, the Wembley display, I was there, I was underneath it, and we managed to get the red and white flags display. Now, what most fans won't realise is that there was a plan in place where the club were to take all of the red and white flags that were in the home end at Wembley, and there was going to be a company that was contracted to go around, pick them all up, and come the start of the Premier League season, have all of the red and white flags in the Stadium of Light as, like, kind of a secondary display. So those who didn't manage to go down to Wembley to experience it could experience it there at the first home game of the season. Unfortunately, Wembley had a quick turnaround, and apparently all of the red and white flags that were left there were just left there and thrown away. So that plan didn't go ahead. And another really cool behind the scenes thing, and this was something personally for me because I'm not really a big fan of AI art, and one of the main criticisms from the Lambton Worm display that we had against West Ham was that, oh, they're just using AI and whatnot, and you had people going into detail, like kind of trying to nitpick and say, oh, well, this looks very AI-ish and that looks very... And the truth is that it wasn't AI. It was a proper artist, a proper graphic designer actually did the designs. And I got to see kind of like a little bit of the behind the scenes process. And as you can see from the sketch that I put up here, that the Lambton Worm, there was actually going to have like Penshaw Monument in the background as well. I'd assume they ended up just going for the Lambton Worm and Lord Lambton there, because having Penshaw Monument in the background would be a bit too much there. But seeing these initial sketches And this is something the fans don't see. Obviously, the club make this whole kind of like dossier of like why we do it for heritage, for history, and all of that. And you get to see like the kind of like the process of what they're trying to bring forth, especially with using the Labrador worm. But we as fans, we don't get to see like that there is an artist actually sketching. You've just got to kind of go online and be like, oh, well, is it AI art? Is it not AI art? But out there, it's not AI art. So that's fantastic to see. And getting to see this, getting to see behind the curtain, absolutely made my week. One of the perks of being in the stadium, and just when the stadium's empty, you don't kind of realise just like how much you can take it for granted on a match day. And it's a weird thing to say, because like when the stadium's buzzing, when all the fans are jumping them down, it is an experience that nowhere else in the world could ever provide. But getting to be there in the silence of it, like I didn't know that the tours actually have like a little button in the tunnel where they press it and they play ready to go, and like all of the people who are on the tours walk out and you can pretend you're actually part of it, part of it. So like having Dance of the Nights and then Ready to Go just playing in the background, and trying to repress the urge to shout out from the rooftops like at the top of your voice in an empty stadium. But doing this display, it wasn't as straightforward. There was bits where things were put out and then they had to be taken back out and then redone again. One of the big benefits of it was that even though it's just like this is Wearside did the main bulk of it, we had help from so many people. And this was one of the things, bringing the community in, bringing every facet of the club in to help create something so grand and so beautiful. We had help from cadets. I believe the Rifles helped out. Some of the veterans popped in from the Veterans Breakfast and decided to help out there. There was players from the club. We had Agi Alisi, Leo Hjelde was there to help us on a day. Some of the women's team, they chipped in, even having David Bruce, like the COO of Sunderland AFC, like actually in there helping putting in the display. And this was the thing. It wasn't just like a core group of like 8 to 10 people. There was a whole community came together just to get them in, just to have them help and be a part of it was enough. And it wasn't just that. It was when we came to the 4th day, we were all knackered and we put out a social media post, and we had around about 20 to 30 people just turn up at the drop of a hat and help out. And we managed to finish like the upper concourse part, as we'd left that at last, finished that in record time. Almost ran out of a few of the different colour plastics. Actually did run out of a few of the different colour plastics that we needed, so we had to improvise. But the full display at the end of it was absolutely amazing. I'm going to finish this video and I'm going to say that the past few weeks of volunteering, like doing things on such a grand scale, and it has to be said with such a small team, has been eye-opening to the hard work that they put in there. But what shines through more is the passion that these people have for their football club, for their community, and for their fellow supporters. And I want you to go away from this. And if you are a Sunderland fan, if you're a football fan, any other team, go and support your club in other ways. If you're specifically a Sunderland fan, I want you to contact them. I want you to give up some of your time, and I want you to go out there and help them in any small way. This is just the beginning. This is Wearside. They've only been like around for 2 years and they're already pulling out huge Tifos, huge fan experiences, huge displays that 48,000 plus fans enjoy and billions around the world get to see. This is a great advert for Sunderland, the city, its people and the football club. And it makes me happy because this YouTube channel is going to be about Sunderland, but it's going to be about history. And there's a huge history for Sunderland, and there's lots of stories in there, and I'm going to be doing loads of videos on them. But getting to be a part of it now, getting to be part of modern history, like present history, we are living through history. No other promoter team has done this well in decades. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that come the end of the season, that we're going to have done something that no promoter team has done in possibly centuries. We have a huge game coming up in December the 14th. And that is when the next This Is Wearside display is planned for. And it's the big one, it's the derby. And this is going to be something spectacular. Now, like I say, what This Is Wearside need is people to put in the graft. You get to be part of something great and something that you could look back on, and something that, like I say, it's historic. And it all depends on the team to do the job. But when we walk out against Newcastle for the first league game in like nearly 8 years, that, you know, the display will be something that will be remembered. And you get, if you're part of This Is Wearside, you'll be able to get like a sneak peek into what goes on, what the design will look like, what's going to be like in the stands and everything like that. You get to see that, and you get to be a part of it, and you get to make it happen. So in the description of this video, I'm going to leave a link to the crowdfunder for the Tifo for the Newcastle match. I'm also going to leave links to all of This Is Wearside, and I'll be honest, I'll probably see you there if they're going to be doing any more open days or anything like that. I'm going to be trying to help out as much as I can. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.